I call it the executive edge. I'm a former college football player, so we always talk about the competitive edge. And what I've learned is that if you're an executive in 2025 and you have a personal brand, that's automatically going to separate you from other people in your industry. And side note, if at any point you want the slides, I have also video tutorials and prompts and links to a lot of the stuff. Just go to frhart2.com/bestlife and all of it's there. So why personal brand and content creation? The thing I've always said is it's the only form of marketing that you can scale exponentially. Dustin and I actually talked about this on a podcast that we did a week ago, but when I've talked to people in the past and I ask them about like, hey, what are you doing for marketing? They'll say, well, we love Google ads. And I'll say, well, what's your return on Google ads? And they'll tell me 4 to 1. And I'll be like, man, that's great. And they'll be like, well, we don't believe in the social media stuff. We don't think it works. And so when I first got started, I used to sit there and try to argue with people, but I'm past that phase of my life. Now I just ask them, I say, okay, if you think that Google ads is the only thing you need and you're getting a 4 to 1 return, why not go to a bank, get the biggest line of credit at a 50% interest rate, run the Google ads for 30 days, and then you can pay back the money with interest and still have a lot of money left over. And the reason why nobody necessarily can double down that concept is because if you're spending a lot of money, it's hard to spend even more money if you want to scale with what you're doing. But when it comes to content creation, you'll see today the apps that I'm going to tell you to get are $100 a month, and then to get started as far as the tech that you need is probably another $100, but you can always scale that, right? Like if I'm spending $5,000 a month on paid, I can't necessarily 10x the creative in an hour, but with this, you'll be able to 10x your content creation and your personal brand relatively quickly. The next thing, like I said, it's the only form of marketing that you can start today without setups. Again, what I mean by that is if you go to a paid media company, the first thing they're going to ask you for is if you have creative, right? But when it comes to personal branding and content creation, you can get started with that today. Like what I said before, every other form of marketing requires content, whether it's email, Facebook, Google, whatever it is. You need to be able to create content in order for that stuff to do well. So the better you get at making content, it'll help you even more. And your personal brand is the biggest lever to get your name out there. And this also relates to the rest of the points. It's not always about the best product in the market. A lot of times it's about the best known, right? Like as business owners, think to yourself, how many times have you seen somebody out there making a whole lot more money than you in an industry, and you're like, man, that person is not even that good at what they do, right? We see it all the time, whether it be, I see it in marketing, I see it in home services, people see it in fitness, coaching, whatever it is. But the reason why people are buying their product is because they're the best known. So if you're already the best, and then you can figure out how to be the best known, it's a recipe for success. So with all of that being said, I've always focused on personal branding, but because of AI, now the sky's the limit to what we can do. And so I'm not going to go into a full-blown conversation on what exactly AI is. One thing that I've taken pride in my business career is taking very complex concepts and making them super simple. So the way I look at it is AI is a technology that can mimic human thinking and working to help us work smarter, not harder. That's what it comes down to. If you can have a technology that can think like a staff member or that can think like an employee that doesn't get tired and will continuously give you ideas, it's a game changer. The second point that I want to talk about, it does level the playing field for small companies, but this is the point I really want to talk about, right? So in the past, what happened was assets were the value proposition for companies and brands. So what do I mean by that? Back in the Madison Avenue era, if I look at marketing, the companies that could charge $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 for a commercial were the companies who owned video cameras because they cost $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. But then what happened is as the markets changed and now they created affordable cameras, they created iPhone cameras that are really close to being just as good as the expensive cameras. Now that's no longer a value proposition, that's a commodity. Then what happened? Companies like Boston Consulting Group, Bain and McKinsey, right? They sell ideas, they sell strategies. And while that's all fine and dandy, because of AI, now ideas have become a commodity. One prompt that I literally use on ChatGPT is, I tell it to position itself as the top 3 consulting companies in the world and analyze the business plan that I'm doing, right? Before I had to pay millions of dollars to talk to those people, now I pay $20 a month and I can get pretty much the same results. So if the assets are now a commodity and the ideas are now the commodity, now it's your ability to execute and your ability to have a brand which is going to separate you. I see my buddy Nick in the back, and he'll be the first one to tell you that it doesn't matter if you're a fitness coach, if you have a great workout plan. What separates you from everybody else is your ability to execute. Did I say that right? There we go. So a couple things to remember during this presentation. This is one math equation I keep in my head all the time, is that human expertise plus AI equals maximum impact, right? There's a lot of people right now who are claiming to be AI gurus a month after AI technology comes out, and that's probably one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. But if you know how to take your expertise, which you've been teaching for years, and then use the technology, you're going to be able to scale everything you're doing crazier than before. One of my favorite books is Robert E. Greene's 48 Laws of Power. And in the book, he says you can intimidate and influence others by reputation alone, right? And so when you think about a personal brand, you want it to be almost to the point where when people want to work with you, they get excited. And when people in your industry who are your competition see you, they get nervous, right? And that's just the football player in me. That's always how that's my mindset that I've always had, right? This one is also a super important one. I believe that when it comes to business, people talk about discipline and people talk about purpose, but oftentimes we don't talk about intention, right? And I believe that intention is the gateway from decision to purpose. I'm going to use Nick again as an example, right? If I go to the gym every day, right, and I want to be a bodybuilder, but I'm not intentional on how I lift weights or the exercises I do, I'm not going to be able to get to my purpose. And so with AI, it allows you to be more intentional because you take emotions out of the equation. And then as a man of faith, Matthew 25:21 says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things." Now, as a man of God, I'm here to tell you that there's nowhere in the Bible that it says that if you love God, you'll be rich or you'll be famous. But the Bible clearly does show us that if you're able to do with little, He'll give you a lot. And so these platforms are free. These AI technologies are super inexpensive. So stewardship is the key to being able to really get your brand out there so that you can really make the impact that you desire. So this is something else that I talk about. It's called the known credible paradox. So everybody is either credible or not credible, and they're known or not known. And so the people who are here almost think of like the Warren Buffett, Ray Dalios, right? They're top of mind thought leaders, right? Like they have a track record, and because they have a track record and because they get their name out there, people want to know about what they're doing, right? If you're not known and you're not credible, you're just going to be forgotten, right? Because people want answers in life, and people buy from people. They don't buy from brands. Now, if you're known but not credible, oftentimes these people are looked at as scams in the industry because they pop up out of nowhere and people say, well, how do I even know the track record that this person has, right? Think about all the social media scammers. Like when you don't know what they do, but they're driving a Ferrari, something's usually up, and that's how they end up in this section. Now, I think a majority, if not everybody in this room, oftentimes falls into this section where they're credible and not known. But the benefit of that is the fact that if you're credible but you're not known, you can get known through doing the strategies that we're going to talk about today. So a couple things that you'll need to get started. Again, like I said, all in, it's probably going to be $180 up front and then $100 to $120 a month. The first thing that you need is a good audio source. And so I have the link on here, but I call this the Hollyland M2S. It's on Amazon for like $130. You can plug it into your iPhone and you can create content at scale with that. I suggest everybody get the paid version of ChatGPT. And then if you, on your iPhone, you have the voice memo app, it's 100% free, but it's going to be a game changer for what we'll implement today. Canva is $15 a month. It's a great creative design tool that's going to allow you to create lots of things at scale. This one is a game changer. I've really doubled down on transferring a lot of my team to this, and this is called Submagic. And Submagic allows you to put the subtitles on your videos, but it's not necessarily like a captions or a CapCut where like creatively you're only stuck to a couple of options. It allows you to emulate styles that are already working in the market and apply them to your content. And then CapCut is a great video editing app, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to learn Adobe. So this allows you to edit videos fast, whether it be on your phone, on your computer, whatever it is. And then if you want to buy a tripod, you can buy a tripod for your phone. That way you have the ability to start filming content. Another thing, when you're filming good lighting, either in a room or outside. And if you're in a room, try to face where the good lighting's coming in from. That way you look presentable. So now I wanted to really dig deep onto how we're going to be able to scale using AI. So the first thing that I think everybody should do is create a custom ChatGPT voice, right? Like raise your hand if you've used ChatGPT before and you've gotten a result and you're like, that doesn't sound like me, right? So usually if it's saying like in the dynamic world of something, usually it's because people don't have a prompt in there to get it to sound like them. But the benefit of this is it usually takes 2 to 3 minutes to do this. And once you do this once, you do it forever, you have it forever. And so basically what you'll do is you'll go to the voice memo app on your iPhone and you'll click record and you'll just answer these questions. Again, this whole thing is on the URL there. But what I do is I take these 3 questions and just go in depth. You can have a 5-minute conversation. You can have a 10-minute conversation. You can have a 20-minute conversation. But then what the voice memo app does now is there's an ability to transcribe the recording. So then what you do is you take that recording, transcribe it, it does it on the phone instantly, and then you put the transcription into ChatGPT with this prompt here. So now you've had a conversation, you haven't necessarily altered the way you're speaking, and now ChatGPT is going to be able to pick up on those things. So now when you want to write articles, write email newsletters, write captions for social media, it'll sound like you based on the transcription that you gave it. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to create an ideal avatar, right? So a lot of times what happens is when people create content or promote their personal brand, they go too wide. And what I've learned from not only my life, but my clients' life is that the more focused you are with who you're trying to target, the better off you're going to be with actually reaching those ideal people. And so, again, you'll need the voice memo app for this. But what you're going to do is you're going to have another conversation, right? The cool thing about this part is ChatGPT has no emotions. So you may think your ideal avatar is somebody, but if you hit record and start to have a conversation and answer all of these topics right here, it may give you a different avatar that you may not be realizing that you need to be talking to, right? So example, in my life, when I did this, I try to do it once a quarter, but when I did this, it showed me that somebody that I needed to look at to try to market to or sell our services to was somebody in the fintech space, because a lot of startups have the resources, but they just don't have the time to promote. But I would have never gotten that response or had that thought if it didn't analyze the transcript. So again, you answer these questions and then you give it the prompt. And when you give it the prompt, it's going to give you 3 avatars, and it's going to give you avatars with like names, with ages, like the revenue ranges, like the services, right? That way, going forward, whenever you're crafting content, it makes all the sense in the world to what you're trying to do. I'm going to talk about my buddy Nick again, right? So in the fitness space, yeah, I told Dustin that this was coming. So in the fitness space, right, if I'm somebody who's a biohacker or I'm somebody who's a bodybuilder, like I need to know the muscle groups, I need to know everything that's going on, right? But if I'm somebody who wants to work with Fortune 500 CEOs to get them in the best shape of their life, they don't care about any of that stuff. So the issue that you run into is if you talk about that stuff to try to attract these people, you're not going to attract these people. But if you focus on what these people want and what these people are looking for, that's how you position yourself as the thought leader for that specific industry. So the 4 pillars of a personal brand as far as content goes is short form video, long form, email, and info/motivation. I think that anybody can start creating all 4 of these today. And this is what I've learned has been the most effective, because short form builds brand awareness, long form helps you nurture those relationships, email is a source of traffic that you own, and then info and motivation allows you to increase engagement. So when we talk about short form content, everybody's seen them online, whether it be the videos with the subtitles, whatever it is. The best thing about short form content is it's the only form of content that doesn't have to be altered whenever you post it on all the social media platforms, right? So if you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have LinkedIn, you have YouTube, and you have TikTok, you can get a social media scheduler and you can post that one short form video, and you don't have to worry about it looking funny on any of the platforms, where it's like you might have to post a picture different on some platforms versus the other. So that's the benefit there. And then it allows a personal connection because people are getting to see your face and learn about you, right? One of the things that I had on the earlier slides is that when you develop a personal brand, the first conversation in person with the prospect goes from who are you and what do you do to I know what you do, how can you help me? And so there are three types of ways that I film short form content whenever promoting a personal brand. The first one is the starter sentence format. Some people call it a hook, but my main focus here sometimes is taking the subject that I want people to learn about and putting it into the video so they pay attention. So sometimes on my content, I'll say, if you're a CEO or executive, right? It's not necessarily, I'm not trying to go viral. I just want to make sure that CEOs and executives see my stuff, right? Because a lot of people will talk about social media and they'll say like, you should try to go viral, you should have a lot of followers. But again, if your ideal audience is a 35 to 45-year-old business owner and you have 1 million followers, but everybody's under 18, like that doesn't do you any benefit. But my goal is to position you guys as thought leaders in your industry. That way, as soon as somebody says, hey, I need this, I need that, they think about you. So after the starter sentence, you have the expertise blurb. This is where the benefit of being credible comes into play, because on this style of video, I don't necessarily believe that you need to script anything on this style, right? So if you have questions about like, if you have the questions that you're answering and you have the starter sentence, then you have the expertise blurb, right? Like you're talking about what's already on the top of your head, right? So I can talk about marketing for days, right? Because like that's what I do for a living. Nick can talk about fitness. Like whatever industry you're in, you can talk about all the time if you're actually credible. And so that's how that comes into play. And then for the outro, oftentimes it's a call to action. You can actually do a couple things with the outro. You can create them in Canva, which I've done in the past, or you can go to Fiverr and you can pay 10 to 15 bucks and get an outro for your short form videos. But again, this is a great way to get started. I would say this is level 2 when it comes to getting started on short form content. And so I have an example here, and this one was actually edited on my phone using CapCut, but like sky's the limit for the editing capabilities. If somebody's told you that ideas and strategies are the game changer or the separator from other people in your industry, the fact of the matter is in 2025, they probably have not used AI, and here's what I mean. See, I believe when business first started, it was the assets or the products or the deliverables that you were giving, which were the game changer. Then over time, the idea and the strategy made you be able to utilize the deliverables that you were given, whether it be products or services in any industry. But now, because of AI, ideas and strategies are now a commodity, and it comes down to how can you execute those ideas and strategies and the brand you have behind them. Because at the end of the day, the product that people buy or the service that people buy is not always the best, but a lot of times it's the best known. Understand that in 2025, execution and brand is gonna be what separates you from other people in your industry. If you're a small business owner, a CEO or executive who's looking to scale your content creation, feel free to shoot me a message, and I'd love to have a conversation about how we can help you make your message known. So that's an example of the starter sentence. And so, again, it allows you to speak from expertise and not necessarily having to worry about like scripting content in the beginning. The next one is the interview content prompt. So like a lot of times, some people aren't comfortable on camera, right? Like, and I think it's important, but I'm also a realist, and I'm not gonna be the person who says like, if you don't wanna be on camera, like if you don't know how to speak, like it's a problem. It's like, no, that's the reality, right? So what you can do is you can literally, if I'm talking at the camera like this, I can just sit off to the side and I can have somebody else read me questions, and then we can just have a conversation, right? Because somebody who is super credible but may not want to be on camera, this allows them to get all that information out of their head, and now you have it recorded. And so for this, sometimes I use an outro, sometimes I don't, but this prompt on the side, what it will do is it will give you interview style questions to then be able to have a conversation with somebody. And if I'm actually gonna go back. So like this prompt here, once you put it in, you'll put the prompt in, you'll change your industry, your specialization, and then those avatars that we created a couple slides back, you'll put those in, and it'll actually give you a graph of exactly what to say as a starter sentence and then the topic to speak on. And so for the interview style, it's the same thing. You'll put your industry, specialization, and then you'll put your ideal avatars again, and it's gonna give you 15 interview questions to speak. That way, 15 interview questions may take 20 minutes, but now you have 15 videos that you can now distribute on social media. And I think when it comes to businesses and marketing versus influencers in marketing, I think that people have to understand that followers aren't always customers. And so I think a lot of times what happens is you'll see a company and they have 5,000 followers and people will be like, well, that company doesn't have a good social media presence. And then you'll see another company, they have 10,000 followers. But if you're selling a product that's designed for 25 to 30-year-olds and half of your following is younger than 15, well, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, you can't sell the product. Whereas if you have a quality following, knowing that when you send out a text message or when you want opt-ins that you're constantly getting them, that's more valuable, in my opinion, than the number of followers you have on social media. I do the interview style from time to time. I actually like talking on camera, but like I do the interview style from time to time. And again, it's somebody's here asking me the questions, they pause for a minute, and then I answer. And then one thing that I've kind of been doubling down on over the last 3 months is, I call it strategic thought leadership. And so the benefit with this style of content is it's a little bit more scripted, but because we have our ideal avatar and our custom voice in ChatGPT, it's going to allow us to create content that ideal person is going to want to watch and want to listen to. And so what you'll do here is, this one is more of a hook, right? And then you have the scripted body. But what I always want to do is I always want to take the human expertise element and put it into it. And so here you get to talk about a personal experience, because that alone is going to separate your content from anybody else in the market, right? If I say, give me a viral script, it can give me a viral script. But this personal experience here is going to change the game as far as like the content that I put out, because like, unless somebody's going to copy my personal experiences, which would be like kind of weird, that's unlikely, but this allows you to separate yourself from other people in your industry. And then again, going back to that outro, you can get it made on Canva, Fiverr, lots of things. And again, this prompt will give you all of that with the ideal avatar, your industry, and your specialization. And so I have an example of what that looks like as well.
Nobody trusts your brand because nobody knows your face. Think about it. In a market full of options, people don't buy from brands, people buy from people. And so if you're hiding behind a logo, you're losing one of your most important trust builders, which is you. The truth is, your audience wants to connect with the person who's leading, who's making the decisions, and ultimately who's providing the solution to the problems that they have. I've worked with clients in the past who have sold their business, and the people who they're selling their business to oftentimes utilize social media to see the type of leader that they're going to be working with. You don't need to be an influencer, you just need to show up. Because the instant that your face becomes familiar, your brand now becomes trustworthy. If you're ready to be seen as the expert you already are, we can build a system that makes showing up effortless.
That's the same structure here. And again, that allows you to get those thoughts out of your head and into a format that your ideal person is going to want to pay attention to. But a lot of times whenever we talk about video, people say, well, what about the editing aspect of it? And so the editing that I think you can do, I think that somebody on your team can do, I think somebody you could hire virtually to do, is simple. I take this video, I put it into CapCut, and then what I do is anytime I pause or I say I just remove that, and then I take all the clips and put them together so they move a lot faster. And then I just take that clip and I put it into Submagic. Now, the reason why I mentioned Submagic earlier is because of the fact that it already sees viral styles of subtitles that are working in the market. So it'll use AI to read what you're saying, so you don't even have to manually do that. And then you can just pick a style, right? But then you can also make the style custom to what you want. So then you upload it, it adds the subtitles, you watch it, you make sure it's good. You can add audio, you can do a lot of things in this platform, but I think that this platform is actually going to be starting to be used by a lot of businesses because it's the easiest platform and it's web-based, right? So if you have a team, you can see what videos have been worked on versus like trying to communicate with somebody who has a software that you don't have, that you have to wish and hope for the best. And so the goal is to develop a personal brand, not to become a media person. And so that's why this editing tactic I felt to be the most efficient and the most effective. And this also allows you to commoditize the process. One thing that Dustin and I talk about is that the process of creating content, what happens a lot of times is people use the arbitrage model, so they find one person to do everything. And the issue is with that is that as soon as that one person leaves or that one person is tired or they want more money or they want to do something else, like you're in a bind, right? But if you can say, okay, this person's filming, this person's editing. Well, now you've split up the process even more than if you go filming, editing, adding the subtitles. Now if somebody drops off, you can still get your content out at scale. And as far as like social media schedulers, they help here too. I have one that I use with High Level. You can use Hootsuite. There's lots of ones out there as well. So then long form content, this allows you to separate yourself as others in the industry. Going back to short form, it's great for building brand awareness, but anybody could talk about something for 30 to 60 seconds. When you can talk about something for 8 to 10 minutes, I know what you're talking about for the most part. And so it makes the sales process easier because if people are looking at your short form, then they look at your YouTube videos, all of a sudden when they book a meeting, they already know your knowledge and they already know what you provide. Now it's just how can you help me like we talked about before. YouTube, of course, is the platform that a lot of people use for long form. I've been posting long form content on LinkedIn as of recently, and it actually does pretty well, not from a viewership perspective, but from a conversation starter perspective. And you can even take your YouTube URLs and put them on Facebook. And so how I edit long form videos, I get the topic. I get the topic from the prompt, which I'll put the prompt on here later, but I take that long form prompt, which basically says, give me 10 long form content ideas. I sit down, I record one of them using an iPhone, using a camera. I do the same thing. I take out the oohs and ums on CapCut, put it together. And then if I have an intro or outro, I create one on Canva. And then from there, I upload it to YouTube, right? Like the name of the game is speed when it comes to content creation. And that's what AI is supposed to be helping you with. So if you can, the faster you can get this stuff out there, the better that you can get at it and the more that you can learn in the process. Another thing that we do when it comes to personal branding is build email newsletters, constant emails. The benefit of emails, there's no algorithm. Everybody on your list knows you and you own the traffic. If you have 10,000 people on an email list and your Instagram account gets shut down, you can email those 10,000 people about your new Instagram account and you can get some of those followers back, right? And at the end of the day, if you have 10,000 followers on Instagram, only 1% to 2% of them are actually going to see the content. With email, it goes to everybody's inbox if you set it up right. And again, you can design graphics here on Canva, but what I do when it comes to emails is I reverse prompt ChatGPT to think of itself as the most elite email marketer and copywriter ever, right? Because then what it's going to do is it's going to look at the internet and it's going to start picking out like some of the best known people when it comes to email marketing, and it's going to get bits and pieces of what they do and apply it to the content. And so again, you put your company in there, your target audience, and from there, it's going to position itself to be able to create your emails, whether it be promotional, email newsletter, thought leadership, whatever it is. Basically, how I write emails after I do this, on Submagic, there's a spot once you're done with the video that gives you a transcript. And so all I do is I take that transcript, after I position ChatGPT as an email marketer, I take that transcript and I say, you know my ideal avatar, you know that you're an elite marketer. How can you take this right here and write an email that will get people interested in the product or service I provide, right? I haven't had to think about anything. I already recorded the video. The transcript is already there to be able to scale. And then I convert the transcripts and emails into articles on LinkedIn and other places by taking this prompt and then taking that text and then recycling it again. But again, at the basis of all of this is stuff I already know. So if somebody asks me about it, right, I don't have a problem explaining it. It's not like those situations where these people have 14 books and they have 14 ghostwriters, and if you go up to them and ask them what chapter 3 said, they have no idea. We don't have that issue here. And so that's how you're able to create this content wheel, all from the basis of the content that you originally created that started all up here. And then another thing that I do is I'll create thought leadership quotes. And so basically, cool thing about this is once it has your custom voice, your ideal avatar, you can literally hit record on ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what I'm going through in business. I think other people would benefit from this as well. Write a quote in one sentence that talks about this, right? And so when you do that, it's going to give you ideas for days, and you can say, I want the quote longer. I don't want you to use these words. I want the quote shorter. But again, ChatGPT is non-emotional and it never gets tired, so it can generate you ideas for days. And then if you go onto Canva, it has all of these templates. All you got to do is copy, paste, post, and then get your stuff out there. But again, it's at the basis of the stuff you already know. And then just showing somebody what's capable and what's possible. If you spend 1 hour filming and then 1 hour using these systems, which is possible for anybody. Like I was actually working with my mom the other day to see how possible it was. And if you spend 1 hour filming and 1 hour using these systems, you'll get 132 pieces of content. Now, somebody will say, well, there's 20 videos, but like what a lot of these guys online are not telling you about marketing is like if you take one video and post it on 5 different platforms, they consider that to be 5 pieces of content. So that's the same framework that I'm going to use here. And so you'll get 132 pieces of content spending 1 hour filming and then 1 hour using the systems, and that'll give you about 60 days worth of content depending on how long you want to string it out. And so, like I said, going back to it, intentions are key, right? Like if you set a time block during the week to create content at scale, you'll be able to get it done, but you have to be intentional about it, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said before, intention is the segue from discipline to purpose. So if your intentions are off, you're never going to be able to do any of this stuff. So you have to figure out like what's your intention behind it, and then that'll motivate you to get it done. So the goal I have for you guys in the next 7 days, didn't think you'd be getting homework today, huh? Take this URL, watch it, look at the presentation. I want you to try to film and edit 2 videos, create an article for LinkedIn, and create 1 graphic for social, right? Because at the end of the day, if you watch this and you see all of this and you're like, I'm just going to hire somebody, the negative part about that is the fact that if you just hire somebody to do it, you can't actually tell if they're doing it right. But if you learn how to do it yourself, once you delegate it out, you'll be able to have a standard and expectation set. And then the last couple quotes, one quote here that I've read before is Warren Buffett says, if you improve your communication skills, I'll guarantee that you will earn 10 to 50% more over your lifetime. And so I've always said that point is clear. So when you don't write or film that video in a live setting, or you don't write or film that video at your house, like it's not just a soft skill that you're losing. In essence, you're losing market value, because at the end of the day, people don't buy from brands, people buy from people. And so you have to be the best known to show everybody that your product's the best. And so that's all I got for you guys. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have.